We didn't think a humorous video was appropriate, so we just went with the old school intro. But yeah, Rob and I were gonna have Michael on tomorrow. And I just thought I have so many freaking emotions running through me today from everything that's going on. And then I started seeing some of the bishops that Michael was highlighting in the past couple of days tweeting about gun violence and trying to change the topic from what it actually should be focused on to pushing their typical liberal agenda items. And I said, Michael, are you free to come on tonight? Because I think this is just something we should all jump on and talk about.
Yeah.
My initial thoughts are just it's very strange how we got an American Pope, and within 3 months you have a Catholic Church, like during Mass, getting fired upon like this mass casualty event. And I'm seeing all the news coverage of it, and I'm watching CNN saying things like, or it might have even been on Fox News. It was like a liberal on Fox News worried that, the backlash for the trans community is going to be something that, they're very worried about it. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe they should be worried. Maybe they should be worried, because I've had it with this stuff. I've had it with them making it like this is about gun control, when this is really about this demonic movement that I think is more evil than Islam at this point, because at least Islam has the end game of 17 virgins when they get to heaven, where this one just seems to be doing it for the thrill of the evil. Like they get off on the evil itself. And I think it's actually worse than radical Islam. So I mean, I don't know what you guys want to touch on first, but I have a lot of feelings on this.
I'm just going to first say, like, some of the themes we're going to talk about in the show and stuff this is probably not a show for kids. Like some of the images the shooter used and stuff are satanic and demonic, and like I don't know if all of us are going to be able to hold in our anger and keep language clean at all points tonight. So if you have kids watching, maybe don't.
Yeah, it was the first time on Twitter where I was just like I was so tempted to just throw F-bombs out, like especially watching Trey Gowdy's comments today, especially just watching the typical liberal reaction about gun control. And I'm like, are you people seriously playing this game right now? I'm watching the Catholic bishops do it. And that is probably one of the most enraging things, because the Catholic bishops have coddled this movement. And especially when you get down to seeing that, I think it was Backwards Feet, that priest, I forgot his name.
Oh, yeah.
He
Paul,
put out that Father Paul. Well, let's not even. I don't want to. I'm not going to try to disparage a priest. Yeah, he put out that the mother was a devout Catholic who worked at the school, and it's like, so she's a devout Catholic, and she signed off on her son's name change when he was underage. Like, that's not a devout Catholic. Don't play that game with me. But in fairness, when you start listening to what these bishops in your typical diocese are saying to these people, and when you see things like Fiducia Supplicans coming out, it does give the impression like we should care. If somebody's having these feelings, maybe we should placate it and play into it.
I mean,
yes, that's
not
exactly it.
To mention doctors, saying your kid will kill himself if you don't go along with this. Like obviously the parents here have some responsibility at the very minimum, but at some level they're kind of victims of the ideology too.
So what I know about the mother is that she was a daily mass attendee. She was very pro-life. I saw pictures of her participating in all sorts of pro-life marches and really strongly advocating for preborn babies. So it seems to me that her mind and her disposition was poisoned by probably a priest who encouraged her to participate in this name change, to coddle her son in such a way that he would believe that he could transform his nature from one thing to another. And, I don't want to say that she is a victim, because a lot of times people will go along with what they want to hear rather than what they need to hear. So at some point there does come a culpability, but I also understand that the father is an alcoholic. So I heard that from somebody who knows the family. But the point that I want to make is that people have itching ears that are burning to hear heresies that they want to follow. And that's part of the problem that we're facing today. And that's what you were talking about, Anthony, with the rise of bishops who are constantly deflecting and pointing to other issues that are not at the heart of the problem. Guns do not kill people. People kill people. And it sounds like a bumper sticker slogan, but it's true.
Yeah.
And the person behind the sight and the trigger is the one making the decision as to which trajectory that bullet is going to take. So we have to start getting to the heart of the philosophy and the ideas behind the one holding the weapon. And to your point that we don't need to talk about controlling the weapon, controlling the guns and things like that, there has to be a proper implementation of the gun control laws we already have on the books. There are red flag laws that exist specifically for preventing people with severe mental health issues from obtaining a firearm. What happened is the American Psychiatric Association removed gender dysphoria and homosexuality and a host of other perverse sexual impulses from the list of mental illnesses. So when people go to flag what it is that is identifiable as a mental illness, if somebody is transgender, if somebody is a homosexual, that does not come up. And that is a serious problem. I want to read you something because I think that this will really kind of expose just how thorough the problem of transgenderism is, and it always has been. We have to remember that the devil was called a liar from the beginning, a murderer and a liar from the beginning. Okay. Now, if we look back to antiquity, we can see very clearly that indiscriminate killing goes hand in glove with transgenderism. Listen to this. This comes from Flavius Josephus, who was writing it about he was a historian.
This is during the destruction of the temple, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
So here's the quote. With their insatiable hunger for loot, they ransacked the houses of the wealthy, murdered men, and violated women for sport. They guzzled their loot, washed down with blood and from mere satiety, they shamefully gave themselves up to effeminate practices, plaiting their hair and putting on women's clothes, drenching themselves with perfumes and painting their eyelids to make themselves attractive. They copied not merely the dress, but also the passions of women, devising in their excess of licentiousness unlawful pleasures in which they wallowed as in a brothel. Thus, they entirely polluted the city with their foul practices. Yet, though they wore women's faces, their hands were murderous. They would approach with mincing steps, and whipping out their swords from under dyed cloaks, they would impale passers-by. Okay? They were committing random acts of violence. Somebody asked, what am I reading? I'm reading from Flavius Josephus, The Jewish War. Okay, it's about the siege of Jerusalem. So this was taking place in Jerusalem when the Roman centurions had surrounded the city. Okay, what that particular passage points to is the fact that people who dress as women, men who dress as women, they're so perverse in the mind, they're so perverse in the heart that they have no sense of the respect, the dignity of human life, and they will commit indiscriminate acts of violence. That's what we're seeing right now.
Fed Calderon's not even that wrong, not wrong. Now, I don't have scripture in front of me, but I'm pretty sure Romans 1 is where it talks about God giving them up to their own desires to the point where man will lust after men, and God just kind of allows them to go about it. That really is what's happening here. But the bishops that the bishops that think placating this thing, right? So what Michael's talking about here is just like this lust that comes along with this whole thing, and it leads to violence and all this stuff. Now, the bishops that are placating this, they may think that these men think that by doing this, they're helping this movement in some way. But in reality, when the persecution of the church comes, they're going to be the target. So they think that they're avoiding, man, I don't know how to put this into words. Like, they think that they think by fighting on that side that they're going to avoid the coming chastisement of the church or something. But no, they're going to be the first targets, because they're going to have a Roman collar on, and the persecution of the church is going to come. And this whole thing of just pretending like the issue is not the issue is, we're also I'm sorry, my thoughts are all over the place, but we're also dealing with people who really genuinely think gun control will solve this, right? When you see how people talk past each other on this issue, and you see how the left really thinks gun control will solve this issue, there's constant talk. I even saw Bishop Cardinal Supich today talking about how President Trump is downgrading healthcare and financing, and that's going to lead to a further degradation of mental health. They won't actually address what the mental health issue is here. It doesn't matter how much counseling you send these people for, if in the counseling it's disordered itself, because these people are sick and they do need help, but they're not getting the help they need. They're getting people who are encouraging this sickness to go further and further, and then they're putting them on these psychotropic drugs, which enhances the delusion even further. And the next thing you know, they're doing things like this. This is not to mention level of evil.
I was going to say, not to mention, like, now the rampant legalization of cannabis, when, studies show that daily cannabis use before the age of 25 leads to, like, I forget the exact number, but a huge increase in schizophrenia and other mental disorders.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that there is going to be a coming backlash against this rainbow cult, and I think it's needed. Like, I think that people, the idea of homophobia, like, I don't think we're afraid enough of them. This is a very, very dangerous it's a cult, essentially. It's dangerous ideology that leads to, it's a degeneracy and a sexual perversion. It's like, so the trans activists may be the violent ones, but the other ones are trying to lure your children into read to them at the library. And then there's another group of them that are trying to get into women's bathrooms. And then there's another group like that. There's another group that are constantly getting picked up for looking at child imagery. And it's the whole thing is just completely degenerate and debauched, and something needs to be done about it. And I think that there's going to be a huge backlash from this.
Yeah, we don't need gun control. We need LGBT control.
Yeah.
We need to have an eradication of that entire movement.
Man,
because it's
I don't know how,
it's a weapon that's being,
it's an ideological weapon. Yeah, it's an ideological weapon. Absolutely. And it's I don't know how this show stays up, man. I don't know. Because
I'm willing to take a strike over it.
Yeah, it's just I think people have had it. I think that something needs to change here. I think this is as dangerous as radical Islam. You used to have suicide bombers that came in. I mean, this is no different, except that the person was in the manifesto. I mean, I don't even know if I want to go through that manifesto or that video. It's so heinous. It's like the person was doing it for the thrill of the evil itself. Whereas at least Islam thinks it's doing it for some greater good or something. This was actually for the thrill of the evil itself.
Right. I was commenting on X earlier today. I said every bishop and priest supporting LGBT ideologies and standing against the Second Amendment have innocent blood on their hands. And the fact of the matter is, if we look at the bishops that have been coddling and supporting the idea of transgenderism, look at Bishop Stowe. Bishop Stowe, who is a member of the AUSCP, we'll talk about them in a little bit, but Bishop John Stowe of Lexington, Kentucky, was actively promoting this woman who transitioned to a man who is acting as a hermit, and he's elevating this person in the community as a pillar of the community, as if there's some sort of pinnacle of virtue, when really the fact of the matter is this person is basically saying, I changed my own nature and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
You know, I wrote about the trans movement. Gosh, when was this? 2018.
Yeah, well, before you read it, real quick, Michael wasn't saying it like it was a good thing. He's saying there's already these laws on the books, and if you actually, he say it's already there. Like you don't need to increase the law. You already have these red flag laws.
The red flag logs, like, but that's kind of besides the point. So when you purchase a gun, you have to fill out the ATF form 4473. That you fill that out. They run that through the FBI background check, see if you're allowed to buy a gun. One of the questions, question 21G, asks if you've ever been legally declared mentally defective. And if you have, that automatically disqualifies you from buying a gun. So if being trans or homosexual
was properly diagnosed,
could still be diagnosed as a mental disorder, that would disqualify individuals from buying guns. Now, the red flag laws are a little different, and I do think they maybe go a little too far in most cases, because those allow anyone to call in to the police, say, I believe this person is a danger to themselves or others, and then the police usually show up with a no-knock warrant where they just bust down your door, which usually causes you to shoot them because someone is busting down your door.
Yeah.
Right. But so that's a little different and besides the point. But
I was simply pointing out that Michael wasn't saying like we have red flag laws, these are good things. He was just saying they do exist, right? And if you could actually have somebody disqualified for mental illness and we classified this thing properly for what it is, they would have been disqualified from having a gun to begin with. And that's essentially
exactly it.
Yeah.
Plus the guy talked about vaping a lot. Don't know if it was nicotine or cannabis. If it was cannabis, that also disqualified him from owning a gun. So,
yeah.
Right.
Go ahead, Michael. I didn't mean to cut you off like that.
No, that's all right. I'm glad actually somebody brought that up, because I think it's important to distinguish between what we already have as laws on the books and the application of those laws for right or wrong. And quite honestly, I'm far more open to just having as few gun control laws as we possibly can. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing to prevent somebody who has a verifiable mental illness from purchasing a firearm, provided that that person is still in that mental state. You know, if it can be shown that they've reformed and they're no longer a danger to themselves or to society, well, then let's have that conversation. But when it comes to this particular classification of individuals who claim that they have changed their own sexual nature, that they live in a fantasy world. Their idea of human sexuality is so perverse and so twisted that they have a false understanding of reality, and they're walking through the world as if that fantasy is reality, and they demand that the rest of society play along with that fantasy. When you have that particular kind of fantasy going on in your mind and you're acting as if it's reality, you have no business having a firearm of any kind, because you are a danger to the society and to yourself, because you have denied reality itself. You might as well be living in a video game.
Yeah. And I mean, when you do go through some of the things the kid said, he did have this obsession with violence, and then you add who knows what drugs they were putting this kid on to go through this transition. And you know, it's just, man, because we hear all the time, like, you basically hear the two sides. Oh, this is a gun violence issue. Oh, this is a mental health issue. But you're not addressing the core of the issue of where the mental health is being derived from. The mental health issues are being derived from these insane ideologies that are being pushed from the church itself at this point. And that really, what this mother probably endured was, she's in a church. She's working there. She probably, she could have been trying to be a good Christian woman. And then she's hearing this messaging from people like James Martin. She's hearing this messaging even from as far up as the Vatican. And then the Vatican's kind of endorsing the James Martin message, saying that we're supposed to be welcoming to these people and not ever tell anyone the truth. You sit there and you welcome people, but don't ever tell them the truth. If the church is not going to be the pillar and foundation of truth, what is its purpose?
Yeah. Well, you know, a couple of years ago, I put out a big 64-page report on Common Spirit Health, which is the largest Catholic health network in the United States. And the report focused on the fact that Common Spirit Health was pushing LGBT ideologies and performing sex change operations in several of its locations. And it was also pushing for the idea of transitioning kids, giving them puberty blockers for the sake of saving their lives, because for crying out loud, if you don't give them puberty blockers, they're probably going to kill themselves. I don't know if I can say that on YouTube without getting you guys dinged, but I just did. Sorry. But that's what they're telling the people. That's what they're telling parents, that if you don't allow this, then they're going to delete themselves. And that's where we are. But Common Spirit Health, the largest Catholic health network in the country, is pushing this hard. Now, to the USCCB's credit, they responded by saying, you know what? There is no trans ideology. God created man and woman. This notion that you can change your nature is completely garbage. It's heretical. It's God, you know, you can't put forward this idea. And it is completely immoral to engage in any kind of transition ideology, including and up to identifying somebody as the sex that they are not.
Yeah. I mean, we even had that clip going around 2 weeks ago where I don't know if it was a bishop or somebody at the Vatican talking about how they inadvertently ordained trans men, like women that transitioned. Like, and he was like, don't ask me if this is possible to happen. This has already happened. Like, this happened. We inadvertently ordained women that were presenting themselves as men, and we didn't find out until later. Like, this is something that's happened. This ideology is infested inside the church. And yeah, I'm glad that USCCB came out with that statement, but they may make a statement on paper, but then in their actions, they're doing something completely the opposite. James Martin's being welcomed into every single diocese. He's being platformed while Rob and I are getting canceled. I also want to play the Trey Gowdy clip, Rob, because if anybody didn't see that, this one absolutely blew my mind, that this man sees this situation happen, and what he decides is the root cause of the problem is so baffling to me. You have it handy?
Yep.
I put it in the chat.
1 second here.
Yeah.
Okay.
He especially because the people, I mean, he decides he's going to blame white men, which is so insane, because we're already dealing with the left coming down on, like this is not what this issue is about. And when it all just seems so manipulated that you even now have these conservative politicians coming out and saying we need gun control. It just feels like we're being manipulated for them to take everybody's First Amendment away. Oh, Second Amendment.
Second
Amendment. Yeah.
Our system is reactive. Something bad happens, we react to it. And what people are crying for now is, how can we prevent this? How can we stop it? And the only way to stop it is to identify the shooter ahead of time or keep the weapons out of their hands. And so we're going to have a conversation of freedom versus protecting children. I mean, how many school shootings does it take before we're going to have a conversation about keeping firearms out? It's always a young white male, almost always. I mean, did anyone this morning think, I wonder if that was a female? Did any of y'all think that? I mean, there's been one school shooting involving a female. One. Yeah, Tennessee. No. But other than that, it is usually young white male.
To be fair, the shooter themselves was wondering if they were a white female. So
my first thought, anytime I see one of these, my first thought, because and the thing is, the last several, they kept the manifesto from us. They kept the identity from us, and as soon as they start doing that, you know, it's one of two things: it's a trans person, or it's a black person.
Right. This one got out of hand for them so quickly. I wonder how they let that happen.
This one got the second the information got out, people were right on it, and luckily people were smart enough to rip the videos off the guy's YouTube because they scrubbed that crap immediately. And the idea that Trey's first thought was, this is a white man, like, not mine at all. First off, whenever these incidents happen, I go, okay, are they telling us anything? And if they don't tell us anything, my first thought is LGBT or black.
Yeah.
Because if it was a white guy, you'd see it immediately out there. So when they first started reporting that this person was dealing with gender dysphoria, I was like, hold off, don't jump on it, because sometimes they set you up for that. And then, so I saw Rob was even cautious about it. He's like, this is all just rumors for now. Let's wait until we have a little bit of confirmation. But it really is the way it plays out in the media. And then there's somebody at Fox News who's an executive who has a trans child. So the way that Fox News is reporting this, they're not even calling it what it is. They're saying killer went by two names, Robert and Robin, and they're not actually saying the situation for what it is. The only place people are actually getting the truth of this reporting is in independent media and people like on podcasts and things like that.
Yeah.
It's just nuts to me. Like it when you get into seeing the conservative politicians coming out and talking like this, I'm sorry, it just all seems like one big agenda. And
so for those not in the gun community, if you watch the video, you had probably no idea, but like at the beginning, he's mentioning a guy named Brandon Herrera. He says like Brandon Herrera for president. Brandon Herrera is a big gun tuber, big YouTube personality who's running for Congress in Texas on a very pro-gun platform, but is also like very anti-trans and obviously doesn't have the politics of this kid. So it's very interesting that one of the first thing he says in the video is to promote someone who's very pro Second Amendment.
Well, it's you want to promote your enemies so that you can taint them with your evil, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much what that was.
You guys looked into some of the symbolism on the weapons that I had never heard about before, and you guys were actually talking to me about it a little bit in the green room. What were those things you guys were talking about?
Go ahead, Rob. I'll let you start.
I heard this from some of the Zoomers in our Telegram. Actually, they had been clued in on these groups from a couple of the more recent other school shootings. That there are two groups. One is called Order of the Nine Angles, not Order of the Nine Angels. It's Angles, and the other is called 746. I think they're both like satanic, occultist. Anarchist groups is the best way to describe them. A lot of people describe O9A as neo-Nazi, but it's really more of just pure anarchy. They might like say hate Jews in that way of neo-Nazism, but they're not like political or authoritarian. It's just pure anarchy. So they are two satanic anarchist groups. O9A was apparently started by someone with connections to the British MI6, which is interesting that it has 3-letter agency connections. But I guess 746 is an offshoot of that, less politically or less ideological in terms of like their anarchist stuff than O9A, but they, I guess, tend to find young teenagers on things like Discord and groom them, in a sense, using stuff like child porn to get them to self-harm, to get them to transition, and to get them to ultimately end their lives in extreme acts of violence like this.
Yeah.
And this guy had symbols on the weapons and social media accounts of both of these groups. Now, whether he has any official affiliation or contact with them is hard to say, but he definitely at least knew of them and seems to have very similar motivations to them.
Right.
That's wild.
Well, and it's not surprising that he would have satanic imagery on his weapons, or that he would put a picture of Christ with the crown of thorns at the top of a target, taking shots at Christ. Because the thing is, and this is something I can't emphasize hard enough, but the trans movement is Luciferianism.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because at the very beginning of time, what was it that Lucifer said? And we get it right there in Isaiah, where the prophet Isaiah says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, who didst rise in the morning? How art thou fallen to the earth, that thou didst wound the nations? And thou saidst in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven, and I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit in the mountain of the covenant, in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the height of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. But yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, into the depth of the pit." When Lucifer says to himself, "I will become," it's a statement of transition. It's saying, I am not this thing, but I will become this thing. And then, of course, Lucifer gets cast out of heaven, and he goes to Eden, and he says to Eve, "You're not going to die. Your eyes will be opened, and you will become like gods," meaning one of us fallen angels. Now, he couldn't lie to her and say that you'll be like God, because she already knows that she's made in the image and likeness of God. So he has to change it. He has to switch it up. You'll become like one of us, one of the gods. So then, of course, Eve falls for the deception. And if you go through history, you see alchemy, the idea of becoming, transitioning from lead to gold, or you get chimeras, where you can have this combination of various animals and they can become something new. Or this idea of evolution, that a species can transition from one species to another. It will become something that it's not. Reptiles will become birds, okay? Or you get this idea of transgenderism. Men can become women. Women can become men. Or ultimately transhumanism, where man can become machine, and we can download our consciousness into a machine and therefore live forever that way. So it's all Luciferian.
Yeah, it's a mockery of transubstantiation, right? Like we believe,
which is interesting considering what he wrote on his rifle. Take this and eat.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so like transubstantiation, we believe the substance changes but appears under the same it appears the same, but they believe that the appearance changes with the substance. It's like a total inversion of transubstantiation, what they're doing with the transgender movement. Like they believe the substance is different from what God actually created them as, but if they just change the appearance, that will actually it's just everything is a mockery of the Catholic faith. It's I don't know, man. And I think that there's going to, we're at a time where this has to, I just see what the whole culture is doing right now. We're in just such a different time. I've never seen people reacting to things the way they are right now, but this one feels like they've pushed people too far. And the liberals coming out with their typical, I'm going to read one of the this is Archbishop Weisenberger, who we're going to get into because he has connections to the story Michael covered earlier this week. But this is a man who has encouraged this movement. And instead of him doing a little self-reflecting and going, oh my goodness, look at the monster we've created. No, that's not what he wants to do. He says, I'm deeply troubled and immensely sad to hear reports of today's shooting at a Catholic school in Minneapolis. Catholic schools are meant to be places of faith, learning, and safety, and such a tragedy wounds the entire body of Christ. My soul aches for these little ones treasured by our Lord, along with their families and communities. May God embrace them in his tender care and heal those. Even the way they talk about like God's tenderness is just off-putting to me, the way they say it. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but every child must be treasured and safe, and no child should have to live in fear. Even as we pray for those whose lives were taken today, I also ask that our prayer be matched by firm endeavors to end the superabundance of handguns and assault weapons in our nation. We owe it to our families, our neighbors, our friends, but most of all, we owe it to our children. This is not Like, they can't wait to just jump on the political thing instead of discussing what is actually going on here, which is clearly demonic. I mean, anybody that watched the video that this kid put out, it is so off-putting and clearly a demonic possession going on here.
I've never been more convinced that I heard a demon than watching that video. And I've listened to the exorcism of Annalise Michel, so
Yeah.
and then it should be noted that the deadliest attack on a school in the United States was a bombing back in the 1920s. So what if they don't have guns? They'll find something. I mean,
Well, it's not
that
just
sort of
that, Rob.
hatred and evil doesn't just quit.
Rob, there have been guns in this country since its founding. There's never been instances
prior to 1986. You could go to Sears and buy a fully automatic weapon. I mean,
yeah. This thing that we're dealing with is a very new phenomenon, and a lot of it has to do with the chemicals that we're all putting into our bodies by the pharmaceutical companies, things like that. So, Blaze Supage, the facts are clear. Guns are plentiful, and common sense attempts to limit their availability have been largely rejected in the name of freedom not found in our Constitution. Cutbacks in funding for healthcare and social service programs will only exacerbate a national mental health crisis and increase alienation. Like, that statement alone enrages me, because you could pour all the funding you want into the mental health system, but if these people are going into this mental health system and they're being fed their delusion further and not actually, these are people that suffer with gender dysphoria do actually need help. They are people who need help, and they are not getting help. What they are getting is an advancement in their symptoms, and they're being pushed further into this delusion and fed these psychotropic drugs, and then it ends up in violence like this. I'm seeing people saying things like, the trans activists are violent, but not all trans people are. No, okay, fine. You have trans activists that are violent, and then you have another group of trans that are trying to lure your children into the public library in disgusting clothing with the whatever the hell that is, the drag queen story hour. Then you have another segment that's trying to get into women's bathrooms. Then you have another segment that's constantly getting busted by the police because they're looking at child paraphernalia on the internet. Like, this whole movement is sick. It's based in degeneracy. Something needs to be done about it.
So, it's interesting. You were as you were reading the statement from these bishops, Weisenberger, Supich, whoever it is, they always say the same thing. I'm sad. It saddens me to hear that blah, blah, blah. Yes, it's saddening. It's a tragedy. These things are terrible, but it's sickening and it's maddening to hear them speak of these things in such effeminate terms. Yeah. So have you ever read the letter of St. Patrick to Caroticus, the soldiers of Caroticus? It is probably the most masculine, awesome statement ever. Caroticus was this horrible menace. He was going around and he was slaughtering Christians. He was stealing their loot and taking them for himself. And St. Patrick wrote a letter to the soldiers of Caroticus. I'm just going to read a portion to it, because this is how these bishops need to start learning to speak. St. Patrick wrote this. He said, I have vowed to my God to teach these people, though I should be despised by them, to whom I have written with my own hand to be given to the soldiers to be sent to Caroticus. I do not say to my fellow citizens, nor to the fellow citizens of pious Romans, but to the fellow citizens of the devil, through their evil deeds and hostile practices. They live in death, companions of the apostate Scots and Picts, bloodthirsty men, ever ready to redden themselves with the blood of innocent Christians, numbers of whom I have begotten to God and confirmed in Christ. On the day following in which they were clothed in white and received the chrism of neophytes, they were cruelly cut up and slain with the sword by the above mentioned. And I sent a letter by a holy priest, whom I have taught from his infancy, with some clerics, begging that they would restore some of the plunder of the baptized to the captives. But they laughed at them. Therefore, I know not whether I should grieve most for those who were slain, or for those whom the devil ensnared into the eternal pains of hell, where they will be chained like him. For whoever commits sin is a slave to sin, and is called the son of the devil. Wherefore, let every man know who fears God, that they are estranged from me and from Christ my God, whose ambassador I am. these patricides, fratricides, and ravening wolves who devour the people of the Lord as if they were bread. As it is said, the wicked have dissipated thy law, wherein in these letters, in these latter times, Ireland has been well and prosperously planted and instructed. Thanks be to God, I usurp nothing. I share with these whom he hath called and predestined to preach the gospel in such persecution, even to the ends of the earth. But the enemy hath acted invidiously toward me, though the tyrant Caroticus, who fears neither God nor his priests, whom he hath chosen and committed to them the high divine power, whomsoever they shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. And it goes on from there.
Do you want to know what could you ever imagine a Catholic bishop speaking like that? Do you want to know
No.
Do you want to know what the
80% of them
difference is?
Gay.
Saint Patrick actually understood he was up against principalities and powers.
Right.
Saint Patrick actually understood that he's going up against pagan gods here, right? And the bishops of our day want to play footsie with the pagan gods, and they don't recognize the evil that they are up against.
That's right.
Because so many of them are caught up in their own sexual sin, and they're all caught up in their own issues, and whether it's financial mismanagement or whatever, or they just don't even believe anymore, right? And they think that these things that we're talking about are superstitions, and that the gods aren't real, the demons aren't real. St. Patrick had a very profound understanding of the evil he was up against. So when he spoke, he knew who he was speaking to. He knew the power these demons had over these pagans, and these pagans saw the light when he would come and preach to them.
That's right.
It's so sad that we don't have anything like that. I just have to say this, Michael, real quick. We have never had 9,000 live viewers on YouTube ever, anything like that. So
I'm wondering if that number is real.
I mean, it does seem bizarre. We've never had anything. We've never had more than like 1,000. So if you're new to the show, please hit like, subscribe. It would be pretty awesome if you guys all hit like.
It's probably YouTube's bots watching to see when they need to cut it.
That could be possible. But if there really are 9,000 people watching right now, we sure would appreciate a subscribe.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. But you're absolutely right. And the thing is, we have to understand what the definition of effeminacy is. Because I think that word very aptly applies to the bishops. Here's the thing. Effeminacy doesn't simply mean speaking with a lisp and having a limp wrist. Okay, that's not effeminacy. Effeminacy is a pain or a sorrow that one feels towards the action or the enacting a do good. So in other words, when you tell your kids, hey, I need you to go do this chore, and your son says, oh, that's effeminacy.
Yeah.
Okay. That's effeminacy because now he's expressing a sorrow at a do good, at something that he has an obligation or a duty to perform. So when one has a sorrow at, or just an empathy, like a very effete response to having to do something that's hard, something that's important, something that is an obligation or a duty, and they then don't do it because it's hard, or it might it makes them sad.
Suffer, right?
What's that?
It's a reluctance to suffer for something that's good. It's this weakness in men that they don't want to do the hard thing because they don't want to do the right thing because it might be difficult. And you know what? Look, we're up against heavy pressure from the entire culture right now, and these bishops are all terrified. None of them will just take a stand and do the right thing because they're afraid of the little bit of media attention they'll get. Look at you look at just what they did with Cracker Barrel, right? Like this media campaign comes down on Cracker Barrel. I think it was the Fisher King posted the other day. He's like, oh, Twitter isn't real. No. We are the most powerful mob in history, actually. Like, we're more than the Gambino crime family. So if we put that pressure on the bishops, I promise you'll get your Latin mass back. We just have to be willing to do it. Like, we got to start operating. We have to be as wise as fox and as gentle as doves, but or wise as serpents. And, we have to be willing to put some pressure when it's needed. Like, I'm so tired of seeing one thing after another happen and the faithful do nothing. None of them do anything. I mean, you guys are losing your lap. And you're going to tell me you guys can't get 500-600 people together to go and pray in front of the bishop's in front of the bishop's office? Like, come on.
And the second someone stands up, every other Catholic around starts tone policing them.
I'll tell you right now, if they try taking my Latin Mass away, I promise you, I am organizing anything I can.
Do you remember when Nick Sandmann was at that pro-life march in DC? And
yes,
all these people, you had Lila Rose, you had the head of the National Pro-Life March Committee. You had all these pro-life activists. They were coming out and they were condemning Nick Sandmann because, wow, he disrespected this Native American man. And he was, they played right into it.
Mm-hmm.
I was the first one on social media to say, stop. I know exactly what happened. I have the video right here. I've been going through all of the video.
Wait a minute. You were there?
Yeah.
Holy cow. We didn't know each other back then. Wait a minute. So wait, you were there.
There's a lot of hitch-born lore we need.
Yeah. So wait a minute. Was it your video that winds up making
No, it wasn't my video.
Okay. But you saw the encounter between Nick Sandmann and the Native American guy.
Yeah, so there was a really long, like 2 or 3 hour video of, because what happened was there was this group called the Black Israeli something or others. I don't know. It was
Black Hebrew Israelites.
Black Hebrew Israelites. Yeah.
The Black Hebrew Israelites.
So they were there, and they were basically mocking and making fun of this Catholic group, the Catholic high school that was there, and there was a lot of this back and forth, and they were really harassing the Catholics, just really harassing them. And as that was going on, you had this Native American, I can't remember his name, but he's leading some sort of protest, and they're doing some sort of prayer circle or some shamanistic stuff. And he's beating a drum, and he's just, whatever. And he goes over to where Sandmann and his other students are, his other fellow students, and he starts beating this drum right in front of Nick's face. Now, Nick, to his credit, he turns to his friends and he's like, what's this all about? And so he's got kind of a confused smile on his face. And he's like, look, I'm not going to give into this. And some of his friends were starting to get mad, and he actually turned around. He's like, no, you're not going to get physical with these guys.
Yeah.
So he sat there and he stood there and he just kind of smiled at the guy, because what else are you going to do? And they turned that into a campaign of disrespect, and they made it into something that it wasn't. So when we start looking at people who are willing to kowtow, you were talking about police toning or toning police.
Yeah,
tone
police. Yeah.
So immediately, Lila Rose and all these other pro-life activists, they condemned Nick Sandmann right away. They're like, oh, he was in the wrong. They had no idea what was going on. They just said, oh, we don't want to look like the bad guy. Don't besmirch what we're trying to do. So the problem that we're facing right now is that people don't get into the weeds to try and understand the truth and get to the heart of the matter and express it and explain it in a way that says, look, this is the truth. This is the case. This is actually what happened. So when we're looking at this situation now with the school and all these bishops were, oh, well, they're wringing their hands about gun control and gun violence and the problem of violence. The problem is the mentality behind the people that are holding the gun. That's the problem. They don't want to talk about that. And to yours and Rob's point about the fact that these men are themselves deviants, which is leading to their effeminacy. This goes to the report that we put out earlier this week about the AUSCP, where we had priests actually admitting to the rest of the crowd, hey, I masturbate. And you know what? I turn it into a prayer. And when I do, I thank God for my sexuality. That's an actual quote.
You want to know what's enraging about that whole story is that I'm going to give a shout out to Michael Lofton for covering it and actually giving you credit for it. But it was really bizarre to me that you didn't have JD Flynn and Ed Condon covering that over at the Pillar. Like that's bizarre to me. You didn't have anybody at National Catholic Register reporting on that. It's like they really see you you as like a villain or something. It's like, what? So if who is going to report this stuff if you don't? How did you get that audio?
Sources, sources.
Michael's out there setting up Grindr accounts and sending guys on fake dates. Like, what's his name?
Michael's just in the room with a fake
do.
mustache and sunglasses.
Oh my God.
My name is Senor Pastor.
What the hell's his name? You guys gotta help me out here. Who does that? The Veritas guy, Project Veritas.
Oh yeah,
he would set up Grindr.
James
O'Keefe. Michael's out there setting up Grindr accounts to get the inside scoop. It really was, but it's so insane to me that you were able to get that audio.
Good old Hike Mitchborn out there.
Hike Mitchborn. So you set it up and you get this audio now, and now not just that. So yeah, Michael gets the audio that was one of the craziest quotes from it, but then you also show how these bishops are actually endorsing this, and then that same priest that said that goes on and does a podcast with James Martin, right? This all is interconnected, and this all goes together, and it all shows how they will divert and pretend this has to do with gun control while completely ignoring the fact that they are very much a part of why this problem exists.
Yep, they're sexual deviants. They are sexual deviants. They're engaging in sexual deviancy, and you know, there's so much more audio. We had hours of audio to go through, and trying to condense it down to a 16-minute video was really tough. But I have more information we'll be releasing, by the way, just as damning, just as upsetting, much more on the heresy front than on the the gotcha of that one quote. But the fact of the matter is that they're denying sin. They're denying the nature of sin. They want to say that we can be embracing and accepting of certain sins. So what they're trying to say is we no longer want to resist. We don't want to resist the evil. We don't want to fight against the evil. We don't want to have enemies. We don't want a war with anything. We just want peace. We want peace with the world. We want peace with the devil. And it's kind of like the story, the reluctant dragon. You familiar with that story?
I feel like I am, but go ahead, give us a rundown.
Okay, the story of the reluctant dragon. It was written in the late 1800s. It was made into a Disney cartoon in the 1930s or 40s. And the story is that this kid, who's a very imaginative kid, he reads a lot, and he winds up discovering that there's a dragon nearby, and he gets the whole town whipped up into a frenzy about the fact that there's a dragon. And so they go out, they contact St. George, and they bring St. George out to try and fight this dragon. Meanwhile, the boy winds up meeting with this dragon, and he finds out that this dragon doesn't want to fight anybody. He's not a bad guy. He just wants to sip tea and read poetry. And so the kid, wow, I made a mistake. I need to go convince the townsfolk that we're not going to fight this dragon. Well, St. George, he's already been conscripted to fight the dragon. So they come up with a ruse, and they have St. George fight the dragon in this great big battle. And he pretends to skewer the dragon, and the dragon pretends to die. And then the townsfolk come out, and they're like, oh, wow, we got him. We're done. We're rid of the dragon. And then the dragon rises up and says, look, I don't want to hurt you guys. I just want to sip tea and read poetry. And he starts reciting poetry, and he's all effete, and the townsfolk say, oh, well, he's not so bad. And they're going to invite the dragon into the town. This is precisely the parable that we should be reading into and saying that is how the bishops are handling the devil. Yeah. That's how the bishops are handling sin. They're saying, oh, it's not such a bad thing.
It's the same parable as the scorpion going on the frog across the river. It's like, oh, I won't sting you. Don't worry about it. And then he stings. He's like, why'd you sting? Well, I'm a scorpion. What'd you think was going to happen?
My nature.
So we do have some super chats that we got to get to before we can either go to locals or we could I don't know. We could stay here. We got a big audience, but okay. So if a doctor tells you something if a doctor tells you to do something objectively disordered and evil, your duty as a parent is to ignore the doctor. And the same thing goes with a priest who's telling you to do something disordered or evil. For you, Rob, what mental defects would disqualify somebody from owning a gun?
Right now, they would have to be committed against their will. You know, I don't know if a 72-hour hold is enough or it has to be more than that. I would think even if you were committed for a 72-hour hold against your will, I think that would be enough to prevent you from owning a gun legally.
Also, any kind of domestic violence dispute that you have, you're going to lose
Domestic
your guns.
violence,
Any felony, obviously, things like that. But
well, I would add to that schizophrenia.
Yeah.
I think that schizophrenics should not own firearms.
But also drug use, whether it's marijuana, narcotics, even if you're taking prescription pills, you shouldn't be. All that. Also
you'd have to tell the truth on the. You'd have to tell the truth on the form though, because they kind of go by Scout's honor on that one.
You would, and well, except for the criminal stuff, because they do run it through a background. So if you have a felony and you say you don't, they will find that. They might find an involuntary commitment, but like the drug stuff.
That's why Hunter Biden's gun was technically illegal because he was smoking crack. He just lied about it, you know. It's like
which is then it's 2 felonies. It's you owned one while you smoke crack, and you lied on the 4473. So
I've seen comments on Twitter about the amount of firepower this guy had as compared to his probable income because he was unemployed. Do you have any info to be able to comment on that?
So it looked like he had an old school Smith & Wesson, like maybe Model 10 or something like that, 38 revolver. Those can be somewhat collectible, but still you're looking 700 or 800. Something like that might be a family heirloom. So that might have been in the family already. He had a cheap Taurus 9mm handgun. You know, you're looking at $300 there. Probably you can get them used or at pawn shops for 200, you know, so that much there. The shotgun was a Mossberg Shockwave, so probably 400 to 500 there. And then I didn't see anything that told me exactly what the AR was, but you can get an AR kitted out like that for $700-800. So I mean, total, you're probably looking at
$5,000, $4,000, something like that. Oh, you're saying if you get
$2,000 to $2,500 total, but I mean, you know, a lot of people use those shockwaves as home defense. So maybe that was like his dad's home defense.
Yeah.
That Smith & Wesson might have been a family heirloom. So if you're really just looking at a cheap Taurus 9mm and a cheap AR, not much.
All right. There's nothing to that. The demonic premise is God was wrong when he made you. Desecrate the image of God in which you were made and remake yourself in your own image. Bend reality to your will and become like God.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I would add to that there's a reason why demons possess people and angels don't, because it is a diabolical inversion of the incarnation. When Lucifer said, I will become like God, what is he saying? He's saying, I want to become incarnate too. So he possesses people in order to recreate or to establish his means of becoming incarnate. This is why the Antichrist at the end of the world is going to be somebody who is perfectly possessed. A lot of people say, oh, it's going to be the devil incarnate.
No, that won't happen.
That won't happen. But he can perfectly possess somebody. And a lot of the church fathers believe that that's what's going to happen. So if he perfectly possesses somebody, it will be that perfect mockery of the incarnation.
Yeah. This is a good question. For those who saw any imagery from the videos from today, what are some good ways to protect yourself spiritually? It was also upsetting.
Well, I mean, the first thing that you should be doing, I mean, pray the rosary daily with your family. I can't imagine a stronger familial protection. Now, during a storm, I go around with a bottle of holy water and I sprinkle all 4 corners of the house and I sprinkle around the property to make sure that, you know, I ask God, I say a quick prayer and I ask God to protect our house, protect our family, protect our home. Well, you can do the same thing to protect your family and your kids spiritually. Something else I would recommend is at the end of the evening, when you say your night prayers with your family, take some holy water or some blessed oil, exorcised oil, if you have it, and make the sign of the cross on their foreheads with it and bless your family. The fathers should be doing this every night. And, you know, it's not a silver bullet, but I can tell you, you're going to see the spiritual benefits very quickly, and they do compound. It does build on that, and you'll see the grace is working in your family.
It looks like YouTube went back to normal. It's back,
it's down to
back down
900
around
now.
600. That was very bizarre. That was weird. We've never had
I have a
like
feeling it's a glitch.
It started just but it might affect the after show and make it spread further in the algorithm.
That's true.
You know, like if it had 10,000 live viewers, even if it's a glitch, it's going to push it in the algorithm either way, and you're going to get. I mean, that was so weird. I just started watching it going up. Rob texted me, and I texted
someone's
him
right.
at the exact same time.
The feds
don't
left.
work after 9 p.m.
Thoughts on Pope Leo fast tracking canonization for today's martyrs? I think it would be a great message of the resilience of the faith.
I'll be honest, I kind of have a problem with calling them martyrs.
I do too.
Like,
I mean,
wait, what happened? Say that again, Rob.
The two kids that died.
Yeah. I don't like that.
I have a problem calling them martyrs.
A martyr is somebody who makes a choice to die for the faith.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You can't just get killed at a mass, and let's say there's a bombing. You know, let's say there's a jihad on your parish, and everybody dies. Like, you didn't willingly choose martyrdom. You just were. I mean, it's probably a very holy way to die. I'm not. You know.
Yeah.
It's a very holy way to die.
Martyrdom is a very specific thing.
Yes, I agree with that. So, aren't fit to own a gun, aren't fit to be in society. Okay. Yes, Mimi, you definitely were a very good boomer last night. Okay. So, we can head over to locals. We should head over to locals. We had 10,000 people in.
What about the Holy Innocents? We call them. Do we call them martyrs officially? I mean, they're in the Roman martyrology, are they not?
They are. There is a tradition that they had or were given the capacity to choose their martyrdom. It's not.
It's also they died. They did die specifically so that Christ could be born. So I don't know if there's something to that. I don't. You know what? That's a good thing to look into. I would say
it is.
What would be the difference?
Yep.
That's an interesting one. I didn't think of that, but I still think if you're and also there have been martyrs declared when when Muslims do attack churches and stuff. So I don't know. But that seems like a more modern thing to do. I know Pope Francis canonized a bunch of Coptic martyrs that endured something like that, which was a bit controversial. But yeah, I don't know. I get maybe it's because they were before the age of reason. Had something to do with it.
It's true. They couldn't have made a choice regardless. Yeah.
The children died today because they love Christ and the shooter hated them. Yeah, or at minimum, their parents were raising them to love Christ at minimum. So let me look through what I have for
this super chat wants to know, what do we think about people saying alcohol is worse than weed? I think they're retarded.
Well,
to be quite honest,
it depends. Yeah. It depends. I'll it depends the context of both. I think if you're talking about somebody under 21 using weed and it becomes like a psychotropic thing and it winds up driving them crazy, like that's very dangerous. But I think the effects of alcohol when they're abused are far worse than somebody smoking too much pot. I just do. I've seen the destruction caused by both, and I'm using anecdotal evidence, but I think alcohol in moderation is totally fine. I think weed in moderation is a difficult thing to do because it's a hallucinogenic to some degree. But I've seen the abuse of alcohol cause havoc in people's lives in a way that I guess we could too, but
yeah. I mean,
so I have here a couple of
if you think about it, like, I was just gonna say, think of the people who you've seen lives destroyed by harder drugs. Did it start with weed?
Oh
Most
yeah,
of
no, yeah. I'm not defending weed. You guys are saying it's an L.
No, I know
I'm
you're not.
I'm not
I know you're
defending
not.
weed. I'm just talking about like when you see the abuse of alcohol and what alcohol abuse can do. But I think in moderation, like having a drink or two is completely totally fine. There's nothing. I'm just, and yes, weed does make you lazy. I'm not defending weed at all. I'm just, I don't know. I just didn't want to jump to answer that one quickly without giving it a little thought. That's all.
So here, I want to go back to the holy innocents thing real quick. I have a couple of quotes that I think are helpful. Prudentius wrote this. It's a Salve Flores Martyrum. And here's the translation of it. It says, "Hail all you flowers of martyrdom, whom at life's very door, Christ's persecutors slew as storms, a newborn roses kill, or the newborn roses kill. O tender flock, you are the first of offerings to Christ. Before his altar innocent, with palms and crown you play." Saint Irenaeus says this: "Suddenly removed, these children belonging to the house of David, whose happy lot it was to have been born at that time, that he might send them on before into his kingdom. He, since he was himself an infant, so arranging it that human infants should be martyrs, slain according to the scriptures, for the sake of Christ, who was born in Bethlehem of Judah in the city of David." So the way that it's described is
it's almost like they're an offering for Christ specifically, because Herod was an evil, wicked man.
He was a precursor of Antichrist.
Yeah, and for him to just go and murder all those children because he felt a threat to his throne, I feel like they were directly offered as a their lives were sacrificed in order to save Christ. It's like,
well, it's more than that. They were martyrs in a very unique way because their death helps to prove that Christ is the fulfillment of the Old Testament prophecy.
Yeah. I think it's a different category than what we dealt with today. Although these kids were innocent, they did nothing. They did nothing to deserve what they got today. It's just, it comes down to, did they choose it? But there is also this aspect of this bizarre coincidence of the American Pope being elected, and then this happens in a Catholic church within 3 months of his election, and then you have these links to the 3-letter agencies and stuff. Like, part of this just feels like there's something they're messing with us on, man. And I know it's very conspiratorial, and there's
you want to go down a little conspiracy hole?
Should we do it on locals? I think we should do it on locals.
Okay.
Because we could get into the manifesto, and we could, maybe play a little clip or something of that video if anybody hadn't seen it. It's like, I don't want to glorify anything this guy did. Like, if anything, we'll mock him. I don't want to glorify him. I don't want anything like that. It's just to just get a little bit of a glimpse into the depravity of this guy's mind. I think we're better off doing it over on locals. And it's also good to reward our local supporters. So, yeah, we're going to head over there.
Let me pull up the link real quick.
Yeah, for anybody that's not a locals member, what we're going to be doing is, we did one yesterday. We did the advice show yesterday. We're going to be doing those once a month, and we're only really going to offer those to YouTube members and local subscribers. So if you're a YouTube member or a local subscriber, you'll get a chance to come on, ask a question. We'll see how that goes. If we don't have enough people to fill that show with our locals and members, then we'll open it to YouTube, but they're always going to get first dibs. Our locals members are the ones who actually keep the lights on for Rob and I, and YouTube really doesn't pay much of anything. So we can't continue doing this without local support. So if you guys do like the show, please help support us over there. Oh, wait, before we go, Michael, let's promote some stuff from Michael before we go. If you guys are not subscribed to the Lepanto Institute over on YouTube, definitely go and do that. How can people find you, Michael? What do you want to promote?
Go to our website, lepantoin.org. You can follow us on X, Lepanto Inst, or you can find me on Facebook, Michael Hitchborn. I'm the only one there. So, but yeah, follow our research. We do a lot of deep dive investigations into Catholic organizations, like the Association of U.S. Catholic Priests, that we didn't really get to tonight because we were talking about a much more important topic. But we do a lot of deep dive investigations. We've exposed Catholic Relief Services for 5 ways from Friday. We go into the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. I was actually one of the ones to do most of the major exposés of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development over the last 15 years. And we have a charity reports list that encompasses all kinds of different organizations that people give to, charitable organizations. And that list it's about 150 organizations long now, and we rate them as to whether they're safe or not safe to give to, and we give a full report on the ones that are not safe, explaining why you shouldn't be giving to them, whether they're promoting abortion, contraception, homosexuality, transgenderism, heresy, Marxism, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, and if everybody can say a prayer for Kennedy Hall's wife. Kennedy just got his son, who's to be born, is going to have a congenital heart disease that they're not sure what kind of surgeries he may need and stuff. So if you guys can, offer Kennedy and his family up in your rosary tonight. Yeah. And then all right, we're going to head over.
Well, before we go over to locals, for those of you, I mean, the subscriptions to all the different creators do get to be a much, but little heads up. If you want to get a good deal and get a lot of content for your money, buy a yearly subscription to our locals. In about 2 months, it will more than pay for itself.
Yeah,
we can't say much more than that right now.
We can't say much more than that, but you guys, you could get in for a very cheap price now. Buy the year on locals. That's all we'll tell you guys.
Buy the year on locals, and you'll get about 10 months worth of a ton of other content, and that's all we can really say.
Of other creators' content, not just ours. There's going to be a thing where a lot of people have after shows and stuff. You're going to have access to a lot of people's stuff if you have a year of the Avoiding Babylon locals. That's all we can say. Can't say much more than that. So, okay, let's go, Rob.
Okay, I'm just going to start cutting these. I don't have a video prepared. So give me a second. No, I don't like doing it this way, but